Good evening to one and all, and I welcome you all to today's evening webinar. First of all, I would like to welcome our today's eminent speaker, Mr. Manan Sharma sir, and our chairman, Professor K. Rajendra sir, our secretary Y. Satyanarayana sir, and our director, Professor Vijay Lakshmi ma'am, and all our faculty members and students to today's webinar. Now I would like to talk a few words or speak out a few words about today's eminent speaker, Mr. Manan Sharma sir, who is the director and country head of HR and administration based, US based, and sir has 15 years of overall experience, conducted 1500 plus interviews, designed and conducted multiple training interventions. Manan sir is a distinguished fellow in strategic HR management from the World HR Board, which is Asia's largest certification institute and holds international certification in psychometric testing, HR metrics and analytics, learning and development, executive coaching, hypnotherapy, and compensation and benefits. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, Vijay Lakshmi ma'am, request you to welcome sir, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ramya. All of you once again, dear participants, our chairman, Professor Rajendra, our secretary, Mr. Y. Satyanarayan Rao, and all my team who are behind the session. I formally welcome you all for today's fourth webinar. This is our fourth webinar we have organized. Three of the webinars successfully we have organized, which were received well by the students as well as the faculty of various colleges. And today's topic is Inward Journey to Success. When I had a talk with the speaker, Mr. Manan, about what best topic we can go ahead, during my conversation, he advised me about this topic, which is very interesting and useful for the students tomorrow to build their careers. I understood when I gave a deep thought about this topic, I felt it is apt because whoever it is, whether students or anyone, those working with students like us teachers, have to keep thinking about where the chosen path of journey will lead us in future. And as with any journey, the best way to make the most of it is to keep one's eyes open in order to see as much as possible. Therefore, what I feel today, the topic, the inward journey to success, emphasizes, I believe, the importance of looking within, which in turn helps us to look outward. Once we learn how to look within and find out our strengths or weaknesses, then only when we look outward, we can match our identified strengths, using them not only to accomplish our goals, but to serve those around us also. I'm happy to invite today's speaker, Mr. Manan Sharma, to handle the session and to give his insights on the topic. I welcome you all once again for today's session. And Mr. Manan, please carry on.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to begin by thanking all the administrative and the managerial board members of the esteemed institution for having given me this opportunity to talk to students who are at a stage where I was about 12, 13 years back in my own journey. And ma'am, before I start the discussion, I just wanted to share a quick piece of information with everyone, each one of the participants here. What you're going to see here today in terms of the content, you will not find it anywhere on the internet. It is from my own personal life. And when this opportunity came by, one of the considerations I had was that in today's information technology world, information is very readily available on the internet. Nobody has to come on to a webinar and seek inputs from anyone, which are already there on the internet. The real value of the webinar emerges when you become witness to a journey that plays out the concept in practical in front of you. So what you'll see today is drawn heavily from my own life, and Vijay Lakshmi ma'am had introduced me very kindly as the country head of HR for a semiconductor firm called Blaze, which is working on an AI chip, hardware side and software side, both of it. But my story was not that glamorous when it started off. As a student, as you'll witness through the presentation, I was not an extraordinary person, and I had my share of setbacks, as would all of us who are here in this room today. And what I expect you to walk away from at the end of this discussion is that no setback is big enough to set you back by life. Okay, these are momentarily concepts, and what is the right way to emerge from these? And with that, I would like to start the presentation of today. So, as ma'am very kindly highlighted at the beginning of the discussion, we are talking about the inward journey to success today. And let's start with some basic definitions. Everyone knows what failure means. I looked up the dictionary. It told me that it's a noun and that it is defined by the lack of success. And then I looked up what is success. The definition was again that it is a noun, but it is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. And when I was looking through these definitions, I found a reflection of the world that we live in today. Failure needs success to define itself. Success does not need failure. And that's the nature of the society that we live in. The society is heavily biased towards success, so much so that even failure is defined by the lack of success. Now, I wanted to take this entire view of looking at success as an absolute final thing and failure as an absolute final thing and give it a new frame of reference. It is very important, as we'll realize down the line. So let's set on this journey. What is failure? So if you look at a race, okay, you are running along with multiple people and you have to cross a line before anyone else does that. If you're taking the example of chess, you have to make sure that the other person or your opponent goes into a checkmate kind of a situation, or it's a draw, so that you don't lose. If it's swimming, you have to touch the other side of the swimming pool before anyone else does it. Okay. Failure is basically a context. Okay. In games, there are very narrowly defined contexts, like crossing a line, putting the other person into a draw or a checkmate, or touching the other side of the swimming pool. Life is not like that. Life is not going to show you a line that you need to cross. Life is not going to show you who your opponents are always. Life is even not going to show you whether there's a milestone that you can consider as your ultimate milestone. The difference between games and life is context. And now I want you to understand how context gives us control over failure or success. So I have put an image in front of you. Those who are born in the 1990s would definitely know who the artists in this image are. On the left is Kanye West, on the right is Taylor Swift, and some of you might even know what the occasion was. Taylor Swift had been given the award of the best female artist in a ceremony, and just as she was holding the trophy that you see in her hand, Kanye West, who's himself a very celebrated singer, jumped onto the stage, took the mic, and said, "Taylor, your music album was great, but the greatest music album of the year was of Beyonce." And Beyonce was sitting in the crowd. Now see what happened here. Technically, Taylor Swift is the winner. But in a single moment of someone's thoughtless action, that entire context changed. An evening that should have been remembered by Taylor Swift for winning the trophy is now going to be remembered by her for having been compared with Beyonce novels by someone who was not even in the jury. Let's take some more examples. This one I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of. The classical historical election campaign that saw a lot of bitter speeches, a lot of personal attacks happening. At the end of it, Trump won the election by a narrow margin. But here is the context again. Most of the Americans that I speak to on a day in, day out basis, they think that America lost on that day. And I'm not a political person. I'm not a political bigweight. But I know that this particular win of Trump is not remembered so much as the win of Trump by a section of the society in America, but seen more as the loss of America. You might have already heard about Emperor Ashoka, the famous Kalinga War, one of the bloodiest battles that India ever saw, almost a lakh of soldiers killed, maimed. And in that moment, when Ashoka should have celebrated his win against all the forces of the other nation, he decided that he came to the conclusion that he had done maybe possibly the worst task of his life, and that changed his entire trajectory. And he became Ashoka the Great only after that, after having become the disciple of a known person. You all know it, I don't need to mention the name. What is happening here? Through these real life examples, one, I'm trying to tell you that success is not a narrow context, neither is failure, okay? And by having control over the context, you end up having control over whether or not it is a failure or success. You need to understand this very important message, because as a small kid, I remember if my teacher did not accept the answer that I had given in the class, I used to feel very disheartened. And I used to be sulking till maybe the next day. And there might be some such emotional students even here in this group. But has it impacted what I have become today? Very less. It was important for me not to lose my context, right? Remember this context piece. I'm going to revisit it in the later half of this presentation. Context changes the reality of a win or a loss. I will now cite examples where context basically is everything. It is bigger than the win or loss outcome. All of you who follow the Indian women's cricket team would remember this photograph. Ideally, prime ministers of a country reach out to the winning teams and they have a photograph session with the cup. You remember MS Dhoni, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, having such a photo shoot after having won the World Cup in 2011. The women cricketers here were returning from a loss. They lost to England in the final of the Women's World Cup. But the Prime Minister still made it a point that to motivate them and to make sure that they continue on the good path, there was this photo session, right? So they failed to win the World Cup, but they won an entire nation's love, okay? And context is everything here. Nobody remembers that they lost the World Cup final. They remember that they went to the final, and then the whole country celebrated. Similar thing happened in the last World Cup of football. France, who was arguably the best team of the World Cup and also the most powerful with the most renowned players, was the team that beat Croatia in the final. But France did not get the most of the love. Croatia, Team Croatia, which had entered their first final in their entire history, was the team that walked away with the love of people. And in these two pictures, I would like to tell you that context is everything. It becomes bigger than success and failure. So now that I have embedded in your minds the concept of context when you're looking at a success or a failure, let me move on to an exercise, a quick one. All of you see that a person with a coffee mug is slipping on snow, and he's about to have, in the next quarter of a second, he or she is about to have a good fall. My question to you is, what would most of the people looking at this image think about? they'll think about maybe why did this person slip? And they'll come to the conclusion, oh, he was walking on ice. What else could he have expected? Let me ask you a second question. Could this person be happy after falling? And when I ask you that question, most of you, to be honest, will think, what kind of a crazy question is Manan asking? Who would be happy after having had a fall? And this is where the message lies. Remember, I talked about success and failure being context-based. What if this person who is falling down with that cup of coffee feels happy about that fall? They're having their first coffee. They're walking along with their friends. You don't see those friends in the frame, okay? And they slip, and the friends laugh, and this person laughs, and they remember this as a beautiful memory, that they were out on the snow with their friends, and they slipped. Context. Now, what you would have realized through this exercise is about 90% of the audience who has seen this image would assume that the person falling would feel sad about himself or herself. That is your context as the people viewing this photograph. It is not necessarily the context of the person who's falling down. Only the person who is here in the image knows what their context is. Just like you and me. You should know what is your context of success. I should know what is my context of success. This person here in the coffee, with the coffee mug falling on the ice should not be deciding to be happy or sad about the fall based on how 90% of the people feel about him or her falling. Context is of two types. It is your context, it is my context. And you have a choice to follow each one of these contexts to define your success and failure, okay? Let's see what happens when you go by the other person's view of your situation or your context. Before I go there, I spoke about this in the beginning. I do have a fancy title now. I have had this title of HR head for about close to about 5 years now with various companies. And it is very easy to look at my title and look at my body of work and my academics and think that, oh, he seems to be an extraordinary guy. I would like to correct that impression. I've had my share of failures. I have had my share of falls, and they all had a context. So without any shame, in fact, with a lot of pride, I would now walk you through the failures that I've had in my life. And it's okay if you want to clap. In standard 9th and in standard 11th, in math, I got grace marks. Okay, the colleges felt that there was something more about me than my math score, and they decided to give me 2 or 3 grace marks to make sure that I passed. I don't say this with any kind of shame, and I'll tell you why later on. I did not make it to any of the IITs and IIMs in life. I have not even set foot inside an IIT or an IIM in my life. I was never ranked in the top 20 of my class, and the average class size of the schools that I attended was around 60, 70. So I wasn't even in the top 20 in my final scores, overall scores in any of the classes. And after class 12th, because I was not sure about myself and I was always mixing up the context of others and my own context about success and failure, it took me 2 years to get into a tier 3 engineering college. And in the first year of the engineering, I failed in 4 subjects. In the very first year of engineering. Imagine the kind of life this boy is having with all these failures. And then ultimately, I chose a career in HR, which is traditionally considered to be a function for below par students. Below par in math, below par in logic, below par in science. Oh, that's why they have chosen HR. And I had a tremendous stage fear. In fact, my first debate I attended in front of about 3,000 students of my school, and I failed miserably. I was not even able to read up the points that I had listed down. But when I was having these failures, I was also having successes. When I was given grace marks, I was also the consistently highest scorer in social sciences and languages across all classes. When I did not make to IITs or IIMs, I got roles in my professional career which were reserved for the top colleges. I was never ranked in top 20 of my class, but I was topping in subjects. So I was not topping in overall scores, but I was topping in subjects, in machine design during engineering, and organizational behavior and business communications during my MBA. I did get to go to a tier 1 institute in India. It is currently ranked amongst the top in 20 institutes in India. And I did my MBA from there. Though I did not go to an IIT or an IIM, I did make it to a decent college in India. In the final semester of my engineering, I scored a 90.6%. And it was not a low score. So while the beginning of my engineering was fairly disastrous, I ended it on a high note. My overall percentage was around 72.2%. And for those who are interested to look at my marks, I would be happy to share my score sheets on requests. I have headed 5 companies before this company that I'm currently heading as an HR head. This happened within 9 years of my career. And because I know the payments spectrum of the entire country, I know that I'm paid more than some of the tier 1 college graduates of human resources. And finally, I'm speaking to you, all of you. It's a journey. It's been quite a journey. But what I'm trying to tell you is that every time that you have a failure, okay, if you were to follow the context of others in your life, you're going to see only the failures. You're not going to see the silver lining of the cloud. You're not going to see anything positive that is happening in your life. You have to look inwards. And that's what the point of the presentation today is. When I was preparing this presentation, I also looked at giving you reasons why I think I failed when I failed. And retrospectively, Steve Jobs said that it is always easier to connect dots backwards in your life. So when I was sitting down and connecting my dots backwards, some of the trends that emerged were, I desperately tried to prove myself as someone I was not. And obviously I was trying to make everyone happy. So if it was my maternal uncle who graduated from one of the top engineering colleges in India and has about 80 patents in his name today, he was my idol. And for me, the next step in my life was obviously engineering, because he was an engineer and he would be happy with it. And my parents would be happy with it. And in this entire mix, because I was so keen on living through the context and the eyes of others, my own life, I ignored what I liked to do in my own life. And like all Indian parents and students, I was confused between not liking a subject and being weak at a subject. Mind you, so much is the infatuation that Indian society has with success that any student who is not performing in a particular subject is labeled as weak in that subject. They do not put the blame on anyone else for that person being weak on that subject. They just say that person is weak. They don't even go to the extent of saying that, yeah, he does not or she does not like that subject. That's how judgmental our society is. And that's why we fall into that trap of making sure that we are successful in their eyes more than our own. I was underconfident, obviously, because I was in a stream where I felt out of depth of. And ultimately, I was living my own life through their lenses. I had made up my mind that the person falling down with the coffee mug was going to end up unhappy, because that's how 90% of the people felt. And this was causing tremendous stress. Okay. All you have to understand how desperate the situation can become. You have to just look at the number of students who take drastic measures with their life every time a result is announced. And that's how big the stress is. And it all generates from that single decision of living our life through the eyes of others rather than our own worth. So I was caught in this rut, okay, and I was having a really tough time in my life. And then I came here. This incident was from the year 98. We are in 2020, and I'm telling you about my life today. How did this turnaround happen? That's the question I would like to answer. I started, first of all, when I saw that all this mess was going on, I stopped everything and I started looking inwards. Looking inwards basically means having a definition of your own context of success. What is it that you think will make you successful? Not others, not your parents, not your relatives, not your neighbors, but you. And then through that inward journey, I realized what my strong points were. And as Jack Welch, the CEO, ex-CEO of GE once said, by the age of 18, you're too old to start working on your weaknesses. You have to start working on your strengths. So around the age of 23, 24, which is old by Indian standards, I started focusing on the good qualities that I had, the successes that I was having when I was having those failures. And I reframed and shifted my focus from those failures to successes. I looked at my failures. I did not totally discard them. I learned from my failures and made sure that I did not commit the mistakes that I've committed in the past. I had a long-term vision. So because I was not a genius, I was not an ace at math, I knew that the journey is going to be slightly longer than the people who are good at math or other such subjects. But I was assured of one fact, that I will undertake that journey and I will see success at the end of it. And finally, determination, grit. There are scientific studies out there which you can look up on YouTube, which will tell you very clearly how important is grit in success. It is not academic excellence. It is not how much you score in a particular subject that defines how successful you will be in life. The single biggest trait that scientists have been able to interlink with success in life is determination. It is not how fast you run. It is how frequently do you fall and how frequently are you able to pick yourself up. That is grit. And finally, the magical lesson emerged, which was for me that my success will have to be mine. So will be my failures. But the most important thing will be that it would be my context, not anyone else's context, that is going to decide whether I am successful or a failure. So this is broadly what I did to ensure that I continued on the right track and I regained a level of control in my life. Let's talk about what the inward journey was. In fact, isn't that the point of this discussion? What did I do? What were the kind of questions that I asked myself? What were the answers that I started looking for in my life when I started bringing my life back on track? And I've just listed a few of the questions that came to my mind, which ideally should come to your mind too. And I'll briefly discuss about that after this slide. What are your cultural beliefs? And when I say cultural, I'm not saying that you're a Tamilian or a Telugu or a North Indian. I'm not talking about that culture. I'm talking about what is your work ethic. Okay. There are people who feel that they should lead a comfortable life and then they should do everything that is required to do and keep that life comfortable. There are people who work really hard, and there are other people who ask them a question, why are you working so hard? And they tell, the answer that they give is, well, yeah, I like working hard. Okay. What is your work ethic? Are you someone who can only work if there is a pat on your back? If someone tells you, you're doing a good job, continue. Do you need a lot of motivation, or does that motivation come from your own self? So what is your cultural belief? What are your weaknesses? So while Jack Welch says, and I believe him firmly, that you cannot work on your weaknesses beyond a certain point, I also feel that knowing the weaknesses is important, equally important as knowing your strengths. Because only when you know your weaknesses are you able to cover them up with your strengths. And that is very important. Specifically, if you are heading into the market for a job? What are you afraid of? What are your phobias? I remember I had a phobia for math. Ultimately, I started scoring well in those subjects also. But the important piece is, do you understand what you're afraid of? Are there other people out there with similar personalities like yours who have become rather successful in their life? Are you aware of them? What is your personality type? How is your emotional makeover? Do you lose emotional composure very easily? Or are you able to stick with your emotional composure even in tough times and think with a cool head? How do you learn? Now, not every one of you learns by reading a book. Okay. As is my example, my learning in the book through the books was fairly limited. There are those of us who understand a concept when they see that concept being executed in practical. Do you know what type you are? How do you handle conflicts? So your success with people is going to be the most important piece, single biggest defining piece of your success in a company, because you have to work with various departments, with various companies. So are you the passive aggressive type? Are you the aggressive type? Are you the silent type? How do you handle conflict? Or are you the conflict avoiding type? Oh, I would rather not have a fight. Let the other person walk away with the rewards and everything. But yeah, spare me the fight. Do you know what type of conflict management you employ in your day-to-day life? What are your natural strengths? What are the things that come naturally to you? And what motivates you to work? So for some people, it is the money. For some people, it is the social status that jobs bring. For some people, it is the value that their jobs deliver. For some other people, it is the legacy that they are going to leave for the next generation of professionals. What drives you and what motivates you to work? Are you aware of these things? Yes, I asked all of these questions to myself. And only when I started getting answers to these questions was I able to bring my career back on track. So that brings me to the all important question. How do you, as a participant in this webinar, start off on that inward journey, the inward journey to success? So here is a query for you. Your eyes can see everything on their own without any support, except one thing. There's one thing that your eyes cannot see without support, and those are your own eyes. So people say that once you look into the eyes of an individual, you are able to understand what kind of an individual are they. There are certain vibes that you get. Have you tried getting those vibes with yourself? If you try and do that, you will need a mirror. You cannot see your own eyes with your own eyes without a mirror or without a reflective surface, if you want to be specific. I present the mirror to you today. So I have a report. This is called the Mirror Report. This is something that was done for me when I was a youngster, and I was in that indecisive phase in my own career. So what I have prepared, and before I tell you what all it tells you, you would have heard at the beginning of the introduction that I am a trained psychometrist, internationally certified on that. I'm an internationally certified coach, and I have put those experiences into use while designing this report. And quickly, I will take you through what the report tells you. You will have to spend about 2 hours with yourself on that report. And at the end of the report, some of the questions that you will answer for yourself will be, what is your personality type, strengths, weaknesses, and who are the other successful people that belong to your personality type? Believe me, it can be very powerful to know what other people have accomplished in their life, and they were just like you. What are the list of professions that will suit you? I strictly and I stringently believe that these kind of counseling sessions should be done right after class 9th for all the students in India. But our infrastructure is a step behind the world on this particular fact. And this is something that you get to know through this report. How do you learn? What is your learning style? What is your emotional makeup? How big are you on emotional quotient? There are 4 parameters of emotional quotient. Which parameter are you strong on? Which parameter do you need to work more on? How do you behave in conflicts? I refer to that. What is your cultural makeup? So that you can define what kind of a company is going to be the right fit for you. And what is your professional driver? And then obviously, because this is not my full-time job, this is something that I do on my weekends because I love counseling students. This is something that I do in an ongoing basis on my weekends. My weekday is totally devoted to my company, and I do not do these activities on my weekdays. But obviously, with this entire report, I also talk about a one-on-one consultation wherein any questions that you have for these reports, I answer those questions on a one-on-one basis. So someone in my life stepped in when they saw me struggling real hard, and they gave me an entire picture about all these aspects of my life. And it happened sometime in 2005. And by 2007, I had completed my MBA graduation with human resource and marketing as my major and minor respectively. And since that time, I have not looked back. And I want to do the same thing for anyone out there who feels that they don't know themselves well enough, and they don't know how their personality matches up to the market. So this is what I offer, the Inward Journey to Success. I have discussed the broad fundamentals at the beginning. I have gone into specifics now. And now I have a question for you. After this, I'm going to be open for any questions or any inputs that I can get from the panelists here. The question that I have for all the audiences here is, where does success actually reside? Partially, it resides in the eyes of the others, but I have myself been telling you through this entire presentation that you should not be looking at your success through the eyes of others. Actually, success sits in the same place where failure sits, and that place is your brain. I thank you very much for your time. These are my contact details. In case any one of you is interested in that personalized report that I talked about, I would be happy to work with you. Obviously, these details are also available with ma'am. At this, I end the session. I hope it was a good 40 minutes that you had on a Saturday evening. That did not appear to you as a waste of time. With that, I would like to thank you for your time and hand over the discussion back to Vijayalakshmi ma'am.
I welcome any kind of questions what you can pose to the speaker. Please, you can put them on the chat box.
Okay, so I have some chats here. Let me quickly go through those. Okay, I don't have any questions here. Okay, I don't have any questions. These are just comments. But anyone who wants to ask any question, I see a raised hand here. So there is Mamta Sharma, I think, who has raised a hand. Mamta, you can ask your question if you want.
There is one asking by Bharti Gorti. Success means when we have contentment. Is it right? She's asking.
I think it starts with one step before that. You have to understand what is going to get you contentment.
Conflict avoidance.
Yeah, so if contentment for you means having a car, having 2 houses, and you have achieved that, then contentment will be success for you. But if you're not sure what is going to give you contentment, then you are going to be in troubled waters for some time before someone comes and tells you that, listen, it seems this is what contentment means for you. So it's all good theoretically and literature wise, but you should work on your definition of contentment so that you are also able to visualize what your success will look like. That's my recommendation to you. Ma'am, the second question you were saying was on conflict management?
Conflict avoidance.
No, she's asking, like, is it conflict avoidance? Is
Okay.
it conflict avoidance?
Okay. So conflict management is a field of study on its own. And there are some conflict management styles that have been identified through empirical research. And there is no perfect conflict management style. What is important for you is when you get into a conflict with someone, how do you de-escalate that conflict? Do you understand how a conflict is born? What is the life cycle of a conflict? And what are the various types of conflicts? Only when you understand that, would you be in a position to sort out the conflicts with other people. India, China is a classic example. Both are nuclear capable countries, but look at how they are fighting on the border. They are pushing each other around physically. Someone is punching the other person. And then ultimately there is Trump coming in and there is all sort of negotiations and positive news that is coming through. So you need to understand your opponent. You need to understand your opponent's style of conflict. And that's when you can start managing conflict. And you also need to understand how you naturally cope with conflict. So the younger members in a family, suppose there are 3 or 4 brothers and sisters in a family. The youngest member of the family is pampered. And for them, the conflict management style is demanding. They're going to demand to their parents or to their elder siblings. And they're going to say, I need this atta. And the elder one is going to provide. For someone who's senior most in the family, they have seen that they have to make some compromises so that the junior members of the family can have a good quality life. And their conflict management style would be totally different. They would be yielding. In a conflict, they're likely to give away their own interest in the larger interest of the organization or the family. So who are you? And that's what the inward journey is about. What is your conflict management style? Do you know it? That's the answer I would like to give on that.
Yeah, there is one more question from Shridata Fatima. Sure. When we are unable to accomplish the task or under pressure, we feel depressed. And there's no one else that can console you or motivate you until you yourself get up. How to manage that phase or get self-motivated in that state?
Right. A quick fix is meditation. A quick fix is breathing exercises that help you take away the negativity. But it's not a long-term or a permanent fix. I would like to encourage you to understand what has led you to that situation first. Okay. As a HR head of a company, it is normal for me to have calls at 1 or 2 in the morning also with the US counterparts of my company. I can get very stressed out about it. Oh, I'm not getting my sleep and all that stuff. But have you heard about this fact that when you like a job, it ceases to be a stress? It becomes more of a passion. And you don't get tired. You actually get charged when you're in that situation. So the question that I would like to ask you is, if a particular situation is draining your energy, is making you feel stressed out, okay, in a negative manner, there is good stress and there is bad stress. Good stress is the stress that you feel just before going onto stage, okay, just before going into the exam. That is good stress because it actually heightens your sense of acknowledgement and your awareness of the environment. Bad stress is the stress that actually leads to inaction, wherein you are so afraid or so stressed out and so nervous that you can't act. So if you find yourself in a situation that has stressed you out, rather than just focusing on how to take care of that stress in that moment, you also need to think about what led to that moment. And then you have to start working backwards on what the cause of that stress was.
No, here her question is like, see, more of contextual. She says, do I have to depend on others for consoling me, or I should stand up on my own until you yourself get up? So what she means, how to manage that phase or get self-motivated in that state without
Yeah,
depending on anybody.
right. You will not need any help. You would not need any support if you know what your aim is. Problems start when we don't have aim, when our aim is not clear, okay, and we have not gone about doing it in a planned manner. A simple answer to that question is, when I got demotivated in my life, I sought help only when things I went out of my hand, okay, but I gave it a shot first. And then even the helper who helps you out in these tough times, they are going to be very mindful of your situation. They are going to try, if they are well intentioned, they will try and equip you to handle those situations on your own going forward, not depend on them every time that tough situation comes. Okay, so as long as you are able to get hold of such a person in your life, that's great. Okay, if you're not, you will have to become that person for yourself. That's where I was coming from when I said that you have to go back, deconstruct that stressful moment, and try and understand what decisions you took to finally end in that stressful position, so that you don't take those decisions again. You learn from your mistakes.
So there is another question from Dr. Venupriya.
Sure.
Why we desire success? Do we need really? We find success as a solution for our own problem.
There are multiple, there are external.
We desire success.
Sure. We desire success because it might be your motivator. Okay. Have you heard the concept of career anchors? Career anchors are basically a set of 6 to 9 variables that universally define why a person goes to work. And typically, work is the means of getting success for anyone. It could be society, it could be societal pressure, it could be pressure from the financial aspects of your life. You desire success for a reason that is intrinsic to you. Sometimes people who have been brought up in a certain setup will come up with a definition of success that is like, okay, do you have a US degree? Have you been to the IITs? If all the family members in a particular group have been IITians, then there is going to be a success measure for any person born in that family that, okay, if you're not an IIT, then there is a problem with you. So success should ultimately be defined by you, not by the society. If you are good at your job and if you're happy while doing your job, believe me, success will come to you. And along with that success, recognition for your work is also going to come. Okay, so it's important day in, day out. You have to ask yourself, do you feel passionate about the work that you do? Do you feel passionate about the subject that you study? Okay. And once work transitions into passion, that's when this entire question stops being asked. You stop caring about what is the other person's yardstick of your success. You start caring about, okay, I did this yesterday. Can I do this plus this today? So your success parameter becomes internal focused then. And your satisfaction parameter also becomes internal focused.
I think it is cleared. There is another question from our secretary, sir, Satyanarayan Garu. Will attitude and ego hinder success?
They can, potentially, if you don't understand your own attitude, and if your attitude is not based on thorough superiority, okay, then that attitude is going to lead to a downfall. Okay. At times, attitude is also a success. Virat Kohli on the field is not the nicest of guys. Okay. He uses language that is unparliamentary. But has he walked away with the maximum successes in all formats of the game for Team India? He has. So there is a context that is very important to know. Okay. You can't have an attitude and start having aspirations to become an NGO, because there you have to ground yourself. You have to work with individuals who don't have attitude. They don't have the bare necessities of life, and you have to work with them. You can't have your attitude there. However, if you're working for a premium car company as a salesman, You need to have an attitude. You need to know what those purchasers talk about and what is their yardstick of judging a car. So there, that attitude becomes important. Here, that attitude might backfire. Okay, bad attitude, good attitude, these are classifications. Okay, I have known surgeons who used to drink before going to the surgery, and they were great surgeons, excellent surgeons, right? I don't mean to say that that's how surgeons should be. No, what I'm saying is your attitude is something that helps you work better. And if it stops you from delivering your full potential to the world around you, then that attitude is not worth it. You should not have that attitude. It is holding you back from becoming the best version of yourself.
There is another question. I'm not clear about the name of the person asking. It's written MA. Okay. Success judged by society sometimes differs from individual. Do you mean to acknowledge success from an individual point of view or from society point of view? Which weighs more? Which weighs more? Can you provide your insights on this?
Sure. So if I'll take the example from my own life, if I would have judged myself by the society's eyes at crucial junctures of my life, I'm pretty sure I would not have been here. Okay, I would have ranked myself as an utter failure in my life. It was only because I had an internal frame of reference that I was able to focus upon the good things. The world is not very kind with your goodness. Okay, it is not a very kind space. Apart from your mother, your father, your sibling, your elder brother or sister, not the whole world cares for you. So anyone who guides you to become the best form of yourself, the best format of yourself, you should go by them and you should create your success definition. So for me, it is simple. If your internal success definition, you are at peace with your internal success definition, people are going to notice you because you're going to behave differently. Everyone around us is in a rat race. 95% of the people are in a rat race to get more money, to get more marks, to get a bigger car, to get a bigger house, to get another house, to have a swimming pool in the house. And there, in the mix of all these 95% people, there is this 1, 2, 3, or 4% group, which is very content with what they are. They are going to get noticed. And believe me, at some point, the other 90% is going to come over to me and say, man, what's the secret? Why do you always have a smile on your face? Okay. So it depends. It depends on you as a person. There could be a person who is motivated by money. For them, the definition would be the number of cars, would be the amount of gold that they have. And they would be perfectly in sync with doing any work that requires and gets them to that money. But it's important for them to know what guides them. A person with money as a focus, if they get into social service, they're going to do a miserable job because they're going to keep chasing money. They will never chase the benefit of the society.
This question is actually asked by M. Prashant.
Oh, okay.
The one what you answered.
Sure.
And now the question is by Tirumani Venkat.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. My question is, new entrepreneurs takes pressures to handle the task and take risks, and how get out of pressures in group level or individual level. Sometimes we get failures, then mostly new entrepreneurs goes for jobs. How success will get in this situation?
Okay. Good evening to you, whoever has asked that question. I was in the entrepreneurship business for about 1.5 years. That's when I met Mahalakshmi ma'am and Vijayalakshmi ma'am. And that's when we spoke. 99% of your life as an entrepreneur is going to be about failure. Now, the question that you need to ask yourself is, do failures motivate you? If failures don't motivate you, then don't look at those instances as failures. Look at those instances as stepping stones to your next move. Okay, are you learning from your failures? And that is the important piece. Stress emerges when you're looking for money and you're chasing social security or you're chasing a secure life. Stress happens when your professional driver or professional motivation is not in sync with the work that you're doing. Okay, passionate people, when they start businesses, they don't care about the time and effort that they're putting into or resources that they're putting into that business. They just put it in because they have this faith that it's going to work out fine. Okay. And I have seen that those entrepreneurs who have a rock solid faith, they are able to emerge from failures much better. And in fact, they are able to learn from failures in a much better manner. So it's not a simple answer. The question is very interesting, but the simplest answer that I can manage there is try and avoid that stress. If you start your business in your chosen field, okay, if you want to be a poet and you start a poetry business to teach poetry to others, okay, you are likely to last longer. In any business, lasting capability is very important when you start it anew, afresh. But if you are a poet and you start up setting a shop of utensils, okay, and you want to translate your passion for poetry into sales of utensils, good luck with that. It's not going to happen.
I think that question is answered. Next question from Kudshia Fatima. What are your success habits and what is the best advice you can give all over the session?
When I look at any task that is assigned to me, I clearly segregate into a task that I would love or I would not love. Okay. And once I have come to terms with that love or not love fact, then I ask the second question, is it needed? Is it required? So if the second question's answer is that it is needed for me to get to a task that I love, that is enough motivation for me. Okay. So my success factor is very simple. I pick up tasks. I try and pick up tasks that encourage me, that have a factor of curiosity around them, factors that help me stay passionate about my work. I try and stay away from tasks which are not very motivational in nature, tasks which I don't necessarily like. But ultimately, for the team, I have to do that task. I go ahead and do that task with a promise to myself that I'm going to follow this task up with one task that I love. Okay, it is very important to keep that love and passion alive in your professional life. Okay, to my team members, I frequently cite the example of marriage. Okay, if at any point you look at the secrets of a long and successful marriage, mutual appreciation is going to be really one top factor, and second is love. Okay, and the same applies for your professional life. With your job, how much of love are you putting into the work that you get? That is the important thing. And that's what has worked out for me. The other thing that has worked out for me is being able to say no. Obviously, in your earlier jobs, you will not have the leeway to say no. But as you progress higher into your career, you should have the guts to say no to opportunities that you genuinely feel will not get the best out of you. Okay, so you should try and get that stage in your career. I hope that answers your question.
There are two more questions.
Sure.
One from Bharati Gorti ma'am. What are the challenges the next generation has to face in facing the present scenario?
The biggest challenge, apart from the recession, apart from the mood of the companies, and apart from COVID, is how do you keep yourself motivated? Okay, that is going to be the biggest challenge. The attention spans of our generations have continued reducing, right from the introduction of cable TV, right from introduction of internet, right from the mobile devices that everyone has in their hands today. Our attention spans are reducing. Okay, we are on Facebook, we are on social media. Other lives are impacting.
1 minute. We are left with, I believe, 10 minutes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So it's important for you to understand that if you are not following your passion, you will not be able to deliver the best job in your best task in your job. And it's very important for you to get a hold of that passion first. If you have already done that, I don't think anything can stop you, including the recession. Okay, you will find a job and you will deliver your best, and people will know your worth, and they're going to pay you according to your worth, and they're going to give you career progressions also. But if you're not in sync with your passions, if you're not in sync with, you have not undertaken that inner journey, there is going to be a problem. That's my answer to that.
Yeah. So there is one question from Shiva Durga. Good evening, sir. What is the to all the students about success in present, that is COVID-19 situation, as every student is worried about jobs?
I think the previous question answers that, ma'am. COVID-19 So these kind of calamities happen every 100 years. Okay, the Black Death happened in France, in Cuba, in Paris. There have been multiple such situations, and humankind has always emerged out of these situations. Important thing is, how self-assured are you? So I'll just go back to that previous answer that I had given. Don't worry about COVID. Don't worry about the financial situation. Worry about whether you have picked a curriculum or a subject or a major in your life that is in line with your passion. Everything else will follow. Don't worry about the other things.
Yeah, next question. I can see only the mail ID, like from ASS. Good evening, sir. How to get motivated to success in career?
Yeah. So motivation is not automatic. It is not something that happens automatically. Okay. Motivation is sometimes a result of reading a story, sometimes a result of being curious about what made another person successful. Okay. And then there is that moment where you realize that, oh, was that all it took for that person to become successful? Well, I have that quality. And then that becomes motivation. So what makes Virender Sehwag a multimillionaire today? There's only one thing that has led to his entire growth, that he wanted to play like Sachin Tendulkar. In fact, in his initial days, it was very difficult with the helmet on. It was very difficult to differentiate between Sachin and Sehwag, and the shot selection was also very similar. So at times it can just be a Najafgarh guy playing cricket in the gully and deciding that they want to be like Sachin Tendulkar. So you have to find your motivation, man. There is no single answer that answers that. Are you exploring the world enough to give yourself a chance of coming up with your motivation? Are you exploring the various domains, the various jobs, the world around you to understand what motivates you? So I would say your likelihood of getting motivated is directly proportional to how well you explore the world around you.
And Manan, you have an appreciation by our secretary, Satyanarayana sir. Designing lecture is innovative. Instead of taking others as example, you have taken your own experiences. That was nice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So I think that the questions session has come to an end. It's very wonderful, Manan. First thing where I am very much impressed, like our secretary, sir, is everything you have taken out from your own life. Which will be exemplary for the future managers to learn from success and failures of you. It's not looking at life at the context through the eyes of others, judgments of others, and which makes us fall into trap. It is looking inward that is the secret of success. What is that you think is success and makes you successful? It is everything you have to decide. And how to analyze each success and failure to build steps to grow also, that are being discussed today by Manan. I am very happy, Manan, and accepting my invitation and being with us today evening.